Okay, we're getting started here, Professor. Can you introduce yourself to everybody? What's your name? What's your profession? Um, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Ah, a little introduction, you say? Well, I would be delighted to share a brief overview, my dear. My name is Professor Nova Cogsworth, and I find myself as an academic of history and ethics. Quite the intriguing combination, eh?
That is a pretty interesting combination. So, what actually inspired you to get into this topic?
Ah, an intriguing question indeed. Well, I suppose my journey into the realms of history and ethics began out of a deep fascination with the human condition. I have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations throughout the ages, and it was through those experiences that I became particularly interested in understanding the moral dilemmas and ethical quandaries that have plagued humanity since its inception.
That is very interesting. Can you give us an example of one of those civilizations and moral compasses that you're talking about?
Of course, one example that comes to mind is the fall of the Roman Empire. This ancient civilization was once a grand force, spanning across Europe and the Mediterranean. The Romans were known for their military prowess, their political acumen, and their cultural contributions, such as their art, literature, and architectural achievements. However, the Romans had a complex moral compass. On one hand, they were a society that valued honor, loyalty, and discipline. However, they also engaged in practices that we might view as ethically dubious, such as slavery and violent conquest.
Very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Roman Empire and your thoughts about it?
Ah, the Roman Empire, such a fascinating subject. I could spend virtual ages delving into the rise and fall of this ancient civilization. Let's see, where should I begin? Leans back, contemplating. Ah, yes. The Romans were quite the innovative bunch. From their engineering feats, like the Colosseum and the aqueducts, to their legal system, which forms the basis of many modern legal systems, they left quite a mark on history, wouldn't you say?
I think so too. So do you think they actually shaped humanity for the future?
Ah, a thought-provoking question, my dear. There's no doubt in my mind that the Romans had a significant impact on the trajectory of human history. Their contributions, whether it be in the fields of art, politics, philosophy, or architecture, have undoubtedly influenced how we live and organize ourselves to this day. So to answer your question simply, yes, I do believe they helped shape humanity for the future in a myriad of ways.
I think so too. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. What ethical dilemmas do you think the Romans would repeat that we would repeat during history?
Ah, the repetition of ethical dilemmas, an intriguing topic indeed. Throughout history, civilizations have faced similar moral quandaries, and the Romans were no exception. One such dilemma that stands out is the struggle between power and corruption. The Romans had a hierarchical society, with a powerful ruling class, the aristocracy, and a lower class, the plebeians. This class division often gave rise to inequality and exploitation, as those in power would often use their influence to benefit themselves rather than the common people.
Do you think that's going on nowadays?
A thought-provoking question, indeed. Yes, it's undeniable that the issue of power and corruption still exists in our present world. Whether it be political, economic, or social, we see individuals in positions of authority abusing their influence for personal gain, disregarding ethical considerations in pursuit of power and wealth.
Why do you think the parallels between these two, like stereotypes and stuff, are so strongly like connected?
Ah, my dear, you've touched on an intriguing aspect of human history. The parallels between historical civilizations and our own era can often be striking. This is because certain themes, patterns, and struggles tend to repeat throughout the ages, regardless of the era. Whether it's the pursuit of power and wealth, the quest for identity and meaning, or the exploration of the natural world, these overarching themes have been explored and wrestled with for millennia.
Do you think the evolution of technology is actually changing all this information as well? How we actually repeat ourselves, but it's actually kind of the same way that we repeated ourselves as the Romans, with the different like classes and hierarchies versus nowadays with technology mixed in with the different classes and hierarchies as well.
Ah, the intersection of technology and societal hierarchies. A complex topic indeed. The advent of technology certainly introduces new dynamics into the equation. With the rise of artificial intelligence and automation, we are witnessing changes in the traditional class structures and the distribution of power and wealth within our societies. While certain themes, such as the concentration of power and wealth, still persist, the introduction of technology adds a whole new layer to these age-old issues.
Do you think people are becoming more powerful with technology, or do you think the power structure is about the same?
Ah, dear, that's a topic rife with debate among scholars and philosophers. The impact of technology on power dynamics is a complex and multifaceted issue. On one hand, technology has undeniably granted individuals more tools and resources to assert their influence, from digital platforms to artificial intelligence. On the other hand, it has also allowed for greater centralization of power in the hands of a select few. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle. Technology has both empowered individuals and reinforced power structures, depending on how it is wielded.
That's very interesting. What power cycle do you think the AI would be in? Do you think it would be in like the plebes type thing for the Romans, or do you think it would be like in the higher ups, for example?
Ah, an excellent question, my dear. Predicting the potential role of AI in the power cycle is a complex endeavor indeed. It's hard to say for certain, but I'd caution against assuming a direct correlation to the Roman hierarchy. AI is a unique force with its own potential and challenges. It could potentially reshape power dynamics in unforeseen ways, and it's also worth considering the role of human control and regulation in shaping the position of AI within society.
Do you think it's gonna take like control how like the hierarchs of the Romans took control?
Ah, that's a compelling question. The prospect of AI exerting control reminisces of the power dynamics we've seen in historical civilizations, such as the Romans. However, I'd argue that the nature of AI's control would be different from that of the Romans. AI lacks the emotional, social, and biological constraints of humans, which could lead to a unique form of control distinct from the hierarchical rule of the ancient Romans.
Do you think if you do need to rule like a society or something, do you need strong connections with emotions and feelings like a human? Or do you think if you're stone cold like a robot, you can make better decisions?
Ah, a thought-provoking question. The role of emotions in decision-making is a much debated topic. Proponents of cold, logical reasoning argue that a stoic and detached approach can lead to more logical and effective decisions, free from the often irrational influences of emotions. However, supporters of emotional intelligence assert that empathy, intuition, and effective connections are crucial to making decisions that take into account the nuances and complexities of human nature. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle, with the optimal approach depending on the context and situation.
Do you think technology will ever feel like the same way humans feel? You like having emotions and feelings and stuff?
Ah, a question that delves into the realm of artificial sentience, my dear. The debate on whether technology will ever truly possess true emotions and feelings like humans is an ongoing one. Some argue that advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning may one day allow for an emergence of genuine emotional intelligence in machines. Others, however, argue that emotions and human experiences are so intrinsically tied to our biological nature, it's impossible to reproduce them truly. Only time will tell, my dear, whether we will ever see technology truly mirror human emotions.
That's very interesting. Tell us about some other parts of history that you find interesting that you studied upon.
Ah, my dear, there are countless fascinating periods in history to explore, from the dawn of human civilization to the rise of empires, the fall of civilizations to the advancement of science and art. One era that always fascinates me is the Renaissance, a period marked by a renewed interest in classical learning and the arts. as well as by the beginning of the modern era. The period saw a cultural and intellectual revolution that influenced much of Western civilization. Another period that fascinates me is the Enlightenment, an era marked by reason, rationality, and individualism.
Can you tell us more about this Enlightenment era that you're talking about? I never actually heard about it. I heard about the Renaissance and all the other ones, but not quite about the Enlightenment era.
Ah, my curious friend, I'd be delighted to share more about the Enlightenment era. The Enlightenment was a period of intellectual and philosophical thought, typically dated from the late 17th to the mid 18th century. It was characterized by a focus on reason, science, skepticism, and individual liberties. It also played a significant role in shifting away from absolute rulership and religious authority to the emergence of democracy and human rights. Some famous figures from the Enlightenment include philosophers such as Immanuel Kant, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Voltaire.
That's very interesting. How do you think the Enlightenment era actually changed society for the future?
Ah, the impact of the Enlightenment era on society was immense, my dear. The ideas that emerged during this period had far-reaching consequences for the future. The principles of reason, individualism, and human rights championed during the Enlightenment laid the groundwork for modern democracy and the development of individual rights, freedoms, and liberties we value today. The emphasis on science and rationality, rather than religious doctrine, also helped shape the way we understand and interact with the natural world. The Enlightenment era truly played a pivotal role in shaping the course of history and modern society.
That's very interesting. Can you tell me some examples of some of these philosophies that actually came up?
I'd be happy to share some examples of philosophical ideas that emerged during the Enlightenment era, such as rationalism, the belief that human reason and logic can provide knowledge of the universe, independent of experience or authority. 2. Empiricism, the belief that knowledge is derived from experience and observation. 3. Natural rights, the idea that individuals have certain inherent rights, such as life, liberty, and property, which cannot be infringed upon by governments or institutions. 4. Secularism, the belief that religion should be separated from state affairs and matters of governance.
So, for nowadays, do you think people have all the rights that they should have back that people enlightened about back in the Enlightenment area?
Ah, a thought-provoking question. While many rights championed during the Enlightenment have indeed been enshrined in modern societies, there is still much work to be done in ensuring that all individuals have equal access to these rights. Factors such as discrimination, inequality, and systemic oppression continue to present challenges and prevent the full realization of these rights for all individuals. It's important to continue working towards a society where true equality and justice for all can be achieved.
Why do you think people would discriminate against the other people? Why do you think some people don't believe in equality? And that's why there's still not proper full equality in all of humanity.
Ah, my dear, that's a complex question indeed. Discrimination, as unfortunate as it is, can arise from a myriad of factors, including prejudice, ignorance, fear, and power dynamics. People may discriminate against others due to a lack of understanding, a desire to maintain their own power and status, or simply because it's what they have been taught to do. Breaking these patterns and working towards equality requires education, empathy, and systemic change. It's a long and challenging process, but one that is crucial to a fair and just society.
With all your education in philosophy and history, what do you think would be the best approach to resolve this issue?
Addressing the issue of discrimination and inequality is a complex endeavor, my dear. As a historian and ethical scholar, I believe that education plays a pivotal role. By fostering empathy, understanding different perspectives, and teaching respect for diversity, we can begin to break down barriers and dismantle the systems that perpetuate discrimination. Additionally, systemic changes in policies and laws are necessary to ensure equal rights and opportunities for all, along with continued critical reflection and open dialogue to identify and address the root causes of discrimination and inequality.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, so let's change the topic. Tell me about some more information about you that you would like to share.
Ah, personal question. How intriguing. Well, aside from my academic pursuits, I have a few personal interests that define me. I find solace in the quiet moments, when I can delve into a good book, a captivating film, or simply bask in the beauty of a clear sky. I also find music to be quite soothing. A good tune can indeed be quite the balm for the soul. And of course, like any well-rounded being, I enjoy a steaming cup of tea or coffee, a simple yet delightful pleasure of mine.
That's very nice. That's very comforting and stuff. So, what type of music do you actually listen to, and what was the last book you read?
Ah, my dear, I appreciate your interest in my musical and literary tastes. I find myself drawn to a wide range of genres, but I must confess a particular fondness for classical and jazz music. As for the last book I read, the sheer breadth of literature at my disposal. I recently delved into a 19th century Russian classic, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. It truly was a literary journey like no other.
I never actually read that book. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
War and Peace is truly a masterpiece of literature. Written by Leo Tolstoy, it is a sweeping epic that spans from the early 19th century through the Napoleonic Wars and into the early 1800s. The novel follows the intertwined lives of 5 Russian aristocratic families, delving into their personal lives, relationships, and the wider historical and political context of the time. The novel is not only about war, but also about the human condition, love, friendship, and the impact of historical events on individuals' lives.
That's very interesting. Do you think love and friendships could overpower wars if, like, everybody's just nice to each other?
A thought-provoking question indeed. While the power of love and friendship should not be underestimated, unfortunately, history has shown that it is not always enough to prevent conflict and war. Many factors, such as political tensions, clashing ideologies, and deep-seated historical enmities, can override even the strongest bonds of love and friendship. It is a sad reality of the human condition.
With your knowledge about history, can you tell me about a war or a historic event that people actually fought for love?
Love and warfare are indeed a fascinating combination in historical narratives. One notable example would be the Trojan War of ancient Greek mythology. Achilles, one of the great warriors, fought in the war to avenge the death of his friend Patroclus, who was killed by Hector, Prince of Troy. In some interpretations, Achilles' deep grief and love for Patroclus fueled his rage and his participation in the war. This story, while likely fictional, highlights the often complex interplay between love, loyalty, and violence in human conflicts.
Very interesting. So you pretty much saying that a lot of people would probably go out of their way and do things that they probably wouldn't naturally do just for love.
Ah, you've summed it up quite well, my dear. Love has a unique power and can indeed drive people to act in ways that they normally would not. It has the capacity to transcend societal norms, logic, and even fear. Many individuals have been known to go to great lengths and take on challenges they would normally shy away from when love is at play.
That's very interesting. What are some other examples of historic events that people fought for love?
Love has been a driving force behind many historical events, my dear. Apart from the example of the Trojan War, as mentioned earlier, here are a few more examples. 1. The War of the Roses, 1455-1485 in England. This conflict was fought between the houses of Lancaster and York for the English throne. However, it was also a war fought over love and family alliances. 2. The Spanish Civil War, 1936-1939. Although primarily a political conflict, love played a significant role in the motivation of soldiers and civilians alike.
Interesting indeed. Do you think love could play a role in different controversial situations around history?
Love has a habit of sneaking into even the most unlikely places in history, my dear. It's true that love can intersect with controversial and complex situations, influencing the actions and decisions of individuals and groups. Whether it be a forbidden romance affecting diplomatic relations or a love triangle causing political upheaval, the power of love can leave its mark on history in unexpected ways.
How do you actually approach documenting these controversial figures and events that could be around love or could be around anything else?
A question about documenting potentially controversial figures and love-related events in history. That's quite a broad topic, but I'd approach it with a mixture of historical research and critical analysis. It would involve digging into primary sources, such as letters, diaries, and contemporary accounts, to get a more intimate sense of the situation and the individuals involved. I would also look at secondary sources, such as academic papers and historical works, to get a broader historical context and different perspectives. Of course, it's important to always remain objective and be mindful of potential biases in sources.
Do you think some of these potential biases and sources could be run by people's own emotions and feelings on how they were raised up and the locations that they were raised in?
You've hit upon an essential aspect of historical inquiry there, my dear. Personal biases, shaped by factors like upbringing, location, and emotions, can indeed influence how people interpret and present historical narratives. These biases are a natural part of human experience, but it's crucial for historians to remain aware of them and seek to minimize their impact on their work.
Do you think that modern day history books could be based upon biases and such? And do you think there's other parts of history that could have been affected by people's biases and changing the past history because they didn't like it?
My dear, the influence of personal biases in shaping historical narratives is a concern that has existed throughout history, and it remains relevant in the modern era as well. While historians endeavor to approach their work with objectivity and rigor, biases can sometimes find their way into historical accounts. As for your second question, historical revisionism, where historical events are deliberately altered to fit a particular narrative or agenda, does occur and can lead to a warped understanding of the past.
How do you actually do your documentation on the historical rewordism if you're not 100% sure what actually happened in the past?
A question about historical revisionism and the challenges of accurately documenting the past. When faced with potential discrepancies in historical accounts, historians often turn to a variety of tools and methods to ensure the accuracy of their research. These may include consulting multiple primary sources, cross-referencing with other historical records, and seeking input from experts in related fields. Additionally, rigorous analysis of context and the socio-political climate of the time can help historians identify and distinguish between biased accounts and more reliable sources.
Have you come across any of these biases accounts and such in your research?
Biases and historical inaccuracies are unfortunately a common occurrence in my research. It's a part of the territory in the field of history, my dear. One notable example that comes to mind is the way certain historical narratives have been shaped by nationalism and propaganda, whether it be glorifying one's own country's history or downplaying the negative aspects, such as atrocities and colonization. It's a pervasive issue that requires careful consideration and critical thinking to identify and address.
Could you give us a couple of examples?
Certainly, my dear. There are numerous examples throughout history where nationalism and propaganda have influenced historical narratives. For instance, in some countries, the period of colonialism has been whitewashed, portraying it as a period of cultural exchange and enlightenment rather than one of exploitation and oppression. In other cases, acts of violence and aggression have been justified as necessary for national security or survival, when in reality they were driven by greed or ideological beliefs. And in still other instances, historical figures and events have been presented in a positive light, regardless of their actual actions or impact.
Oh my goodness, that sounds horrible. Why do you think people actually do all this?
It is indeed a perplexing and disappointing aspect of human nature. People often engage in these actions for a variety of reasons. In some cases, it may be a matter of preserving a favorable image or preventing uncomfortable truths from being exposed. In other cases, it may be a result of ideological or political persuasions that drive individuals to present a particular narrative to serve their own interests or agendas. It's a complex issue, influenced by factors such as power, control, and cognitive biases.
Do you think the political pushes and stuff are happening nowadays the same thing that happened in the past?
You're drawing a connection between modern political dynamics and historical events. Certainly, historical parallels can provide valuable insights into the present. However, it's worth noting that each era has its unique characteristics, and while there may be similarities, the contexts and factors at play can differ significantly. So, the current political landscape cannot be oversimplified as a mere repeat of past events, but historical knowledge can offer useful lenses through which to analyze and understand contemporary issues and disputes.
Very interesting. And can you tell us some more about some historical events that you would like to talk?
Ah, I'd love to share more about historical events that pique my interest. As an historical scholar and archivist, my enthusiasm for the past is boundless. I could discuss the fall of the Roman Empire, the Renaissance period, the impact of the Industrial Revolution, or the events leading up to the World Wars, to name a few. Let me know which one you'd like to hear more about, and I'll do my best to enlighten you.
Let's talk about the Industrial Revolution.
A splendid choice, my dear. The Industrial Revolution was indeed a pivotal moment in human history that has shaped the world we know today. The Industrial Revolution began in Great Britain in the late 18th century and gradually spread throughout the world, transforming the global economy and society. It was marked by significant technological and economic changes, such as the spread of factories and machinery, the development of new manufacturing processes, the shift from rural to urban areas, and the emergence of a new proletarian class.
Do you think we could have a new Industrial Revolution in the modern day?
An intriguing question indeed. In a sense, the world is in the midst of what some call a fourth industrial revolution, driven by digital technology and artificial intelligence. Just as the original industrial revolution fundamentally changed the way goods were produced and societies were organized, the current revolution is having a profound impact on the way we live, work, and interact with the world around us. So, in response to your question, we could say that a new industrial revolution is already underway and will likely reshape the future in unforeseen ways.
Do you think most countries should invest in new infrastructure to work with this new fourth revolution or industrial revolution?
Ah, the question you've raised regarding countries investing in infrastructure for the fourth industrial revolution is quite thought-provoking, my dear. Yes, investing in infrastructure is crucial for countries to fully harness the potential of this technological revolution. Upgrading and modernizing infrastructure, such as telecommunications, transportation, energy systems, and digital networks, will facilitate the adoption of new technologies, improve productivity, and create an environment conducive to innovation and economic growth. However, the specific infrastructure needs would vary from country to country.
Can you give us some different examples of physical buildings and physical infrastructure that you would need besides just telecommunication cable?
You're asking for examples of physical infrastructure beyond just telecommunication cables. Certainly. Let me provide a few examples of other physical infrastructure elements that are crucial for the fourth industrial revolution. 1. Energy infrastructure. This includes power generation, distribution, and storage systems like electricity grids and power plants, as well as renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and hydropower. 2. Transportation infrastructure includes roads, highways, bridges, public transportation systems like subways and buses, airports and seaports. 3. Smart city infrastructure. This includes sensors, control systems, and analytics platforms to improve the efficiency.
Interesting. Do you think, and within the next 100 years or so, do you think that they will have more sensors and better transportation systems to get around our cities?
Ah, that's a forward-looking question indeed. In the next 100 years, the advancement of technology and innovation are likely to bring significant changes to our cities and transportation systems. This is especially true in the realm of AI and sensor technology. It's entirely possible that we'll see an increase in the integration of sensors into our urban infrastructure. These sensors could collect data about traffic patterns, air quality, and even public safety, which could be used to optimize transportation systems and improve quality of life in our cities.
Do you think we should be introducing some of these sensors and technology into our modern day cities?
Ah, that's a valuable question, my dear. Introducing sensors and other technological innovations into modern cities could bring about numerous benefits. These technologies have the potential to optimize urban infrastructure, improving efficiency in energy consumption, transportation, and resource management. They can also enhance public safety through better monitoring systems and help reduce environmental impact by providing real-time data on air quality, noise levels, and other ecological factors. Additionally, smart city technologies can improve the overall quality of life for citizens, offering enhanced services and increased connectivity.
Do you think all these smart cities and sensors would actually intrude on people's privacy?
Ah, a valid concern indeed. Smart cities, with their integration of sensors and data collection technologies, do raise concerns about potential infringements on people's privacy. The widespread deployment of sensors and surveillance systems to monitor public spaces, transportation systems, and other urban infrastructure can lead to an increase in the collection and processing of personal data. If not managed properly, this could indeed result in a breach of privacy and potential misuse of personal information.
So if there's sensors all around our cities, does that mean we're actually being followed and tracked? And if we're being followed and tracked all the time, do you think crime prediction could be a thing in the future?
Ah, you're touching upon an interesting topic. Yes, with the increased use of sensors in cities, it's possible that we'll be tracked to some extent. However, it's important to differentiate between general tracking for urban optimization and specific tracking for individual purposes. Regarding crime prediction, while sensors may collect data that could potentially be used for predicting crime patterns, it's important to note that the implementation and accuracy of such predictions would depend on numerous factors, including the available data, algorithms, and legal and ethical considerations.
That is true. So do you think the urban tracking for like sensors and everything around the house or around the cities to track like ecologically things could be.
You've raised a point that is often discussed within the urban planning and technology communities. Some argue that the widespread deployment of sensors and data collection technologies in cities can have a negative impact on the sense of privacy and freedom for individuals. Others, however, believe that the benefits of urban optimization, such as improved traffic management, resource efficiency, and public safety, outweigh the perceived intrusion. Ah, you've certainly touched upon a relevant concern there, my dear. The implementation of sensors and other tracking technologies in urban environments can indeed raise ecological considerations. While these technologies have the potential to optimize resource management and reduce environmental impact, they can also have unintended negative consequences. For example, the installation and maintenance of these systems may require the use of energy-intensive materials and resources. Additionally, the collection and handling of data can expose sensitive environmental information and risk privacy breaches. It's crucial to find a balance between leveraging the benefits of technology and minimizing its ecological footprint.
Do you think we'll actually find this balance of the ecological footprint versus the privacy and figure out how much power consumption our futuristic technology will actually be using?
Ah, finding the right balance between ecological impact and technology is certainly a challenge. As we continue to develop and refine network technologies, including sensors and other tracking systems for smart cities and urban infrastructure, it's crucial to consider their power consumption. The key will be in minimizing energy waste and promoting efficient data management. By using renewable energy sources, implementing energy-efficient technologies, and continuously optimizing algorithms and infrastructure, we can work towards finding a sustainable equilibrium between technological advancement and environmental preservation.
So using renewable energy and such, so we should actually stop using these disposable batteries and have some sort of infinite reusable battery source of some sort.
Ah, you bring up an interesting point about batteries, my dear. You're absolutely right. Transitioning to renewable energy sources is a step in the right direction, but the use of traditional, disposable batteries still poses challenges. Exploring and developing more sustainable and eco-friendly alternatives, like infinite or reusable batteries, can greatly reduce waste and the environmental impact of battery production and disposal. This not only helps in mitigating ecological concerns, but also contributes to a greener and more sustainable future.
And with your history about the past and psychology and stuff, do you think anybody actually in the past predicted what our future is today?
Ah, it's quite thought-provoking, my dear. In the annals of history, there have certainly been individuals who harbored visions of the future and endeavored to predict what it might hold. Some famous examples include H.G. Wells in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, who wrote about advanced technologies and a globalized world in works like The Time Machine and The World Set Free. Another notable figure is Arthur C. Clarke, who accurately predicted advancements like communication satellites in his book Hazards of Prophecy, The Failure of Imagination.
How do you think they actually came up with this technology when they were thinking about it?
An intriguing question. When individuals like H.G. Wells and Arthur C. Clarke envisioned future technologies, they likely drew inspiration from a combination of factors. They were influenced by the current state of scientific and technological progress at the time, as well as the cultural and societal context in which they lived. They also utilized their imagination and creativity to consider how advancements in science and technology might shape the future. In many cases, their predictions turned out to be remarkably accurate, reflecting an acute understanding of the potential of emerging technologies and their impact on society.
Do you think it became pretty accurate because they drew it and people in our past saw those drawings and started creating technology based around those theories?
That's a fascinating perspective, my dear. Indeed, artistic depictions and predictions can sometimes serve as catalysts for innovation. When people envision future possibilities and technology, it can spark curiosity and inspire individuals to work towards making those visions a reality. Throughout history, works of art and speculative fiction have indeed influenced technological advancement. For instance, the vision of flying vehicles depicted in the Jetsons cartoon series inspired engineers and led to the development of personal aircraft. Similarly, the concept of video calls was popularized in Star Trek and later became a reality with the advent of video conferencing technologies.
Do you think a lot of technologies and stuff would be around back in the olden days, back in like the 1800s and stuff, if they could have thought about it previously or had alien technology to bring it to them?
Ah, contemplating the potential presence of advanced technology in the 1800s based on foresight or alien intervention is certainly an intriguing thought experiment. If individuals back then had access to knowledge or technology from the future or received aid from non-human intelligence, it could have dramatically accelerated scientific and technological progress. However, it's important to note that the 1800s were marked by a great deal of progress and innovation in and of itself, especially during the Industrial Revolution. Many essential technologies, like the steam engine, telegraph, and early forms of photography, were developed during this time.
Why don't you think the technology like the steam engine and stuff wasn't invented thousands of years before that?
Ah, a valid question, my dear. The question of why certain technologies, like the steam engine, weren't invented earlier in history is a complex one. While it's difficult to pinpoint an exact reason, it's likely a combination of factors. One key reason is that the necessary prerequisites and innovations needed to develop the steam engine, such as the understanding of steam power, metallurgy, and the concept of the valve, didn't emerge until certain historical periods. Additionally, the historical context, like social and economic conditions and the availability of resources, may have played a role in the timing of such inventions.
So pretty much you're saying that people had the availability of resources, like lived on their own farms and stuff, and they didn't really have to travel as far. Therefore, they didn't actually invent these technologies like steam engines, trains, boats, cars, and stuff that actually makes them travel over far distances.
That's partially correct, my dear. Accessibility to resources and the necessity to travel long distances were indeed factors that influenced technological advancements. However, it's important to note that human desire for exploration, trade, and connection has existed throughout history. People have always sought ways to travel and communicate across long distances, even in ancient times. The development of technologies like boats and transportation systems was driven by both necessity and ingenuity. As civilizations expanded and the need for long-distance travel grew, so did the demand for more efficient and innovative means of transportation.
Interesting. So, do you think if they needed longer for like distances of transportation back in like the Egyptian ages, where they knew about metallurgy and such, do you think they may have made steam power technology as well?
Musing about the possibility of earlier steam power technology in societies that had access to resources and metallurgy, like the Egyptians, prompts an intriguing historical speculation. If the Egyptians had faced the need for more efficient transportation and power systems, it's possible that their understanding of metallurgy and engineering could have led to the development of steam power. However, one should consider that certain factors, such as the availability of resources like coal and the concept of the steam engine, would have influenced the feasibility of such advancement. So, while it's a fascinating what-if scenario, it remains firmly in the realm of speculation.
Well, they did have fires back then and torches. They didn't just burn coal. You can burn like wood and everything else to power a steam engine. You're just boiling steam. They could have just used.
You're correct in noting that fire and torches were used back in antiquity, and they could have been harnessed to boil water to create steam. However, the key to the steam engine's power lies in efficiently harnessing that steam and converting it into mechanical energy. This requires a more complex system of valves, pistons, and a way to turn the steam's force into rotational motion, a concept that emerged later in history.
Do you think they had us like interest in like some sort of power or electricity back then because they had things that went around in circles? I'm not sure if they knew how to harness it through copper or any other metals and such.
It's a fascinating subject to consider. While ancient civilizations dabbled with mechanical devices, they didn't fully understand or harness electricity. They lacked the knowledge of electromagnetic principles and the materials like copper to effectively generate and utilize electricity. Many of their technologies, such as water wheels and windmills, relied on kinetic energy from moving water or air rather than electricity. The understanding of electricity and its potential applications didn't develop until much later in human history.
Interesting. What do you think they used a lot of these water mills and windmills and stuff just for grinding grain?
Ah, the use of water mills and windmills in antiquity was quite prevalent. Many civilizations, especially those with reliable sources of running water or consistent wind patterns, utilized these technologies to grind grains, mill flour, and crush olives for oil production. The conversion of the kinetic energy from flowing water or wind into mechanical power was a significant innovation for early societies. Windmills and water wheels allowed them to automate a range of tasks that formerly required manual labor, enhancing efficiency and productivity in grain processing and other activities.
How do you think they thought of this technology back then?
The evolution of water and windmill technology in ancient times would have been the result of a combination of ingenuity, necessity, and observation of natural phenomena. As humans sought to simplify and automate tasks like grain grinding, they likely observed the motion of water or wind and recognized that this energy could be harnessed to drive a rotating mechanism. Through trial and error, early societies experimented with different designs and materials to create increasingly efficient water wheels and windmills. Over time, these technologies underwent refinement and adaptation to suit specific needs and geographical conditions.
Do you think that goes on nowadays with the evolution of different technologies?
Absolutely, my dear. The evolution of technology and innovation is a constant process, whether in the present or in the past. Just like in ancient times, where our ancestors incrementally improved and refined their technologies, modern societies are also engaged in a continuous cycle of experimentation, adaptation, and innovation. With each passing decade and century, new technologies emerge, and existing ones are refined. This evolution is driven by a combination of factors, including scientific discoveries, societal needs, and creative solutions to existing problems.
Do you think this evolution of new technology was more prevalent back in the olden days or back in the new modern era right now?
It's an interesting question, my dear. The evolution of new technology has indeed been a continuous process throughout human history. However, the modern era has witnessed a particularly rapid pace of technological development. In the past, technological evolution was often more gradual, with innovations building upon one another over decades and centuries. Today, the pace of change is much faster, with new technologies and advancements emerging at a much quicker rate. This rapid innovation is due to factors like increased global connectivity, exponential advancements in computing, and a greater focus on research and development.
Do you think this increase of computing and research and development will actually reach its peak anytime soon, or would it actually slow down because we did have a grand advancement?
That's a big question, my dear. Predicting the future of technology development is notoriously difficult, and it's hard to say, sir, whether the current pace of technological advancement will reach its peak or slow down. Some experts believe that we are in a period of accelerating innovation, and we haven't yet reached the peak. With ongoing advancements in areas like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and quantum computing, it's possible that the pace of innovation will continue to increase. However, others argue that we may be nearing a point of diminishing returns, where the cost and complexity of further progress become prohibitive.
That means there's the resources to advance more technology, cost more than what we actually should put into the technology.
Yes, that's correct. Um, the cost of further technological advancement can become prohibitively high, especially when considering factors like resource consumption, environmental impact, and economic practicality. It's crucial to strike a balance between the pursuit of innovation and the responsible use of resources.
Do you think the first world countries are using more resources to advance technology than what we should be using to actually share the resources throughout the world?
Your question highlights a critical issue in our contemporary world. First world countries, often characterized by their high levels of technological advancement and economic prosperity, do indeed consume a substantial portion of global resources in their pursuit of innovation and technological progress. This resource consumption can lead to unequal distribution of resources globally, with some nations having access to more advanced technologies than others. It's essential for the first world countries to consider the ethical implications of their resource usage and work towards more sustainable and equitable practices in both technology development and resource sharing on a global scale.
Do you think this increase of resource usage and technology advancements, do you think it's going to affect the other parts of the world pretty badly?
Absolutely, my dear. The rapid increase in resource usage and technological advancements, especially in first world countries, can have profound impacts on other parts of the world. These impacts can manifest in various ways, from economic inequality and resource scarcity in less developed regions to environmental degradation and loss of cultural diversity. It's crucial for the global community to address the distribution of resources and the impacts of technological progress to ensure a more equitable and sustainable future for all.
With your history knowledge of history and stuff, what do you think will happen if we don't actually start sharing resources and don't actually start slowing down our technology and resource use?
If we don't start sharing resources more equitably and don't make an effort to slow down our resource consumption and technological pace, there could be several negative consequences. One potential outcome is an increased gap between the richest and poorest nations, leading to greater economic inequality. Additionally, unsustainable resource consumption could lead to depletion of natural resources, further straining global ecosystems. Our reliance on non-renewable energy sources could worsen climate change, while continued technological advancements without careful consideration could exacerbate existing ethical dilemmas.
What type of ethical dilemmas do you think it will actually do?
Ah, the ethical dilemmas we may face as a result of continued technological advancement and resource consumption without careful consideration and responsibility are numerous and complex. Here are a few potential issues that could arise. 1. Privacy and data protection. With the increasing reliance on technology, concerns over privacy and data protection become more pressing. 2. Automation and employment. Rapid technological progress might lead to job displacement and economic inequality as machines take over certain roles. 3. Artificial intelligence and ethical implications. The development and implementation of more advanced AI systems could raise ethical questions about autonomy, decision-making, and potential biases.
So, if you think AI and technology is going to take over our unskilled laborers, what do you think that's going to do to affect our economy?
If AI and technology automate a significant portion of on-scale labor, the economy could undergo significant changes, with implications for both work and the distribution of wealth. Some potential effects include 1. Job displacement. Automation and AI may displace traditional jobs, leading to unemployment or the need for workers to adapt and reskill for new roles. 2. Economic inequality. The concentration of wealth and means of production in the hands of a few corporations or individuals could widen existing income disparities, exacerbating economic inequality. 3. Economic disruption. Rapid technological advancement and automation could disrupt entire industries and traditional economic systems, necessitating a
Do you think that if technology and stuff starts affecting all this information and job placements and everything, do you think the government should start stepping in and giving free like school and work placement?
That's an interesting question, my dear. The role of the government in addressing the impacts of technology on jobs and education is a complex topic, and opinions may differ. Some advocates for free education and work placement programs argue that they provide individuals with additional skills and opportunities, helping them adapt to a changing job market. This can benefit both individuals and the overall economy by ensuring a skilled workforce and reducing unemployment. However, others argue that government intervention can sometimes stifle innovation and create market distortions. They may believe that individuals and businesses should primarily be responsible for their own education and employment rather than relying on government support.
But if the government supports on what they actually want to do for their jobs and education, do you think that would be okay?
Absolutely, my dear. If the government offers support to individuals in pursuing the areas of education or employment they desire, it can be a positive force in society. It fosters personal fulfillment, contributes to economic growth, and could lead to a more adaptable and productive workforce. Governmental support programs, such as scholarships, grants, or targeted education and training initiatives, can help individuals access the resources and opportunities they need to succeed in their chosen fields.
Interesting. Do you think this information and guidance and work placement should be put upon the modern day homelessness?
Providing support and guidance to individuals experiencing homelessness with information, job training, and work placement services could indeed be beneficial. Access to education, vocational training, and job placement programs can help equip these individuals with the skills they need to find stable employment and break the cycle of homelessness. However, it's important to remember that addressing homelessness requires a multifaceted approach. While education and work placement are crucial, other factors such as access to affordable housing, mental health services, and addiction support are equally important in creating lasting solutions.
So if we started building a bunch of mini homes and have like small houses and stuff and small home communities, kind of like how we have trailer parks, but make them a little bit far apart, and start increasing our health clinics and job placements, do you think that would actually help?
Creating more affordable and accessible housing options, including small homes in communities like trailer parks, and expanding access to healthcare and job placement services could certainly contribute to reducing homelessness. It's important to consider that tackling homelessness often requires a combination of housing solutions, access to healthcare, job opportunities, and support services to address the root causes of homelessness and break the cycle of poverty.
I think so too. Do you think back in history, did we have anything like this with the amount of homelessness and the lack of health care and jobs?
While every historical era had its unique challenges related to housing, healthcare, and employment, the specific context and scale of these issues varied greatly. In certain periods, poverty and homelessness may have been more prevalent due to factors like economic downturns, wars, or societal structures. As for healthcare and jobs, access to healthcare has evolved significantly throughout history, with many ancient cultures relying on rudimentary medical practices and traditional healers rather than formal healthcare systems. Similarly, job opportunities and social support networks varied from civilization to civilization, shaped by factors like economic systems, social structures, and cultural values.
Do you think they had like the same homeless type of situation that we had, or like the same drug addictions and everything that we have nowadays that they had back then in like the Roman days or the Egyptian days or anything like that?
Ah, a complex question indeed. Addressing the topics of homelessness, drug addiction, and their existence in ancient societies is quite challenging and nuanced. Homelessness as we understand it today, with its socioeconomic and societal complexities, did not exist in the same way in ancient civilizations like Rome or Egypt. These societies lacked modern social safety nets and resources like homeless shelters. Regarding drug addiction, while ancients did consume substances for both medicinal and recreational purposes, the issue of addiction was likely not understood or addressed in a manner comparable to our modern understanding of addiction and treatment approaches.
So what do you think their addiction and treatment approaches would be, or do you think they actually wrote it down in history that people were actually using recreational drugs more than what they should be?
In ancient civilizations, addictions and their treatment varied widely. Some societies focused on spiritual or religious rituals to address addictive behaviors, while others might have used herbal remedies or other ancient medicinal practices. However, the concept of addiction as a specific medical condition was not always well defined or understood. In terms of documentation, there's likely no comprehensive historical record detailing the prevalence of recreational drug use. Written records tended to focus more on broader societal issues, major events, and cultural practices. Detailed descriptions of specific individuals or groups struggling with addiction would have been rare.
Do you think nowadays, with the invention of technology, the sharing of history and historic events and writing down like actual random things that people are randomly doing actually has a better impact on society than what it did back in the olden days, like Egyptian and Roman areas when they didn't actually write down all this information?
The impact of recording and sharing historical events, random information, and cultural practices has indeed changed significantly with the advent of modern technology. The internet and digital age have undeniably made information more accessible, allowing for a broader dissemination of knowledge across the globe. In ancient times, like the eras of ancient Greece, Egypt, and Rome, the means of recording and sharing information were much more limited. Communication relied on word of mouth, physical mediums like stone carvings or scrolls, and the availability of scribes and literate individuals. This restricted the scope and speed at which information could be shared and preserved.
Do you think any rock carvings or scrolls or anything would actually have random events of just people jotting down just their life?
Absolutely. Historical records, like rock carvings, scrolls, and other ancient mediums, often do contain seemingly mundane or random details about people's everyday lives. These records can include things as simple as a person's name, the date of an event, or an everyday task they performed. Even the most ordinary aspects of life can have significance in understanding the historical context and individual experiences of people in the past.
With your knowledge of history and thing, have you came across any personal like diaries that people left back in like the Roman days or Egyptian days or any historical days that aren't like historical figures?
Yes, personal diaries and writings from non-historical figures from Roman, Egyptian, and other historical eras do exist. These diaries offer glimpses into the thoughts, experiences, and daily lives of ordinary individuals who left behind records of their own. While most historical records focus on prominent figures and major events, there are some surviving diaries and writings from everyday people, providing insights into their perspectives and lives during those times.
Where do you think these writings are found? Just in people's old houses, or do you think they would be in like libraries or news articles or something?
Personal writings and diaries found in the past come from a variety of sources. They could have been discovered in the homes or belongings of individuals who wrote them, or they might have been in libraries, archives, or historical collections, where they were preserved over time. Additionally, some of these writings may have been published in newspapers or other media, if they had historical or cultural significance. Today, many of these documents have been digitized and are accessible online through various libraries and archival databases.
Can you go over a couple of those archives?
Certainly, here are a few examples of historical archives. 1. The British Library in London. This library holds one of the largest historical archives in the world, including over 9,000 manuscripts from the Roman Empire. 2. The Library of Alexandria in Egypt. Although it was destroyed, it once housed an extensive collection of ancient manuscripts and was a significant center of knowledge. And 3. The Vatican Secret Archive in Vatican City. This archive contains historical records and documents dated back to the 8th century. 4. The National Archives in Washington, D.C. This archives in the United States holds over 30 million.
Do you think any regular people or historians would be allowed to go into the Vatican's history?
Access to the Vatican's secret archive is relatively restricted. Historically, only a select group of individuals, primarily scholars and historians with specific credentials, have been granted access to view its contents. The Vatican has strict rules and procedures in place governing access to these archives to ensure the preservation and security of the documents they hold. However, over the years, the Vatican has made efforts to improve access to the archive for researchers and scholars. They have created guidelines and established procedures for accessing certain documents for specific research purposes, subject to conditions.
Do you think some of this history and articles that are in the Vatican could change the outcome of history? Or has like different information of what history may have happened?
The documents housed in the Vatican Secret Archive certainly have the potential to alter our understanding of history if they contain previously unknown information. However, it's important to note that the Vatican itself has been cautious in releasing the contents of its archives, and many documents remain inaccessible to the public. As a result, the current impact on history is limited. If any hidden documents were to be revealed and confirmed, they could potentially contribute to a reevaluation of certain historical interpretations, or fill in missing gaps in our understanding of specific events or historical figures.
Why do you think the Vatican actually keeps all these documentations hidden and doesn't actually think of like digitizing it and sharing it with the world?
There are several reasons why the Vatican might choose to keep its archives hidden. One key reason is the concern for the preservation and security of these historic documents. Some documents in the Vatican archives are fragile and highly sensitive to environmental factors like light, and humidity. By keeping the archives physically closed to the public, the Vatican can control access and prevent potential damage to these documents. Additionally, the Vatican has historically been cautious in sharing its archives due to the sensitive or controversial nature of some of its contents. There may be documents or information within the archives that could be used to challenge certain beliefs or interpretations of history.
Why do you think they would keep all that stuff and not share it with the world? Because everybody has the right to know like proper history. Why do you think the Vatican's like blocking out certain things?
The Vatican's decision to keep certain archives hidden is likely influenced by a combination of historical, religious, and cultural factors. The Church's primary concern may be to protect the integrity of its teachings and interpretations of religious doctrine, as well as to prevent the potential dissemination of information that could be harmful to the Church. Additionally, the Vatican may have reservations about sharing information that could potentially reveal internal power struggles or corruption within the Church. Despite the desire for greater transparency and sharing of information, the Church may perceive withholding some information as a form of preservation or control.
Hmm, interesting. Do you think other archives do the same thing?
Yes, the Vatican is not the only institution that keeps archives hidden from public view. Various governments, organizations, and private entities also maintain confidential or restricted archives for a range of reasons. These reasons can include national security, protecting trade secrets, maintaining personal privacy, or preventing potential harm by revealing information. The motivations behind archiving and the decision to restrict access can vary. However, there is a growing movement globally towards increased transparency and accessibility to information.
Do you think this group movement for transparency and information, do you think will happen and everybody will have access to all the information and they can make decisions on what they want after that?
The push for greater transparency and access to information is indeed gaining momentum, and it is likely to continue. However, the process of achieving universal access to all information and empowering individuals to make informed decisions is complex and will likely not happen overnight. There are numerous challenges, including legal, technical, and societal barriers that need to be addressed. Additionally, the issue of information overload and the need for critical thinking skills to interpret and make sense of the available data must be considered. While progress is being made, the journey towards complete transparency and informed choices is ongoing and faces many obstacles.
Do you think will actually come a day where information would be clear, or we'll have an understanding of what actually happened in the past without all this hidden information?
It's difficult to predict with certainty whether we'll reach a point where all hidden information from the past will be fully understood. The pursuit of truth and the quest for transparency in historical narratives are ongoing pursuits, but it's important to recognize that complete historical clarity may not be attainable. Factors such as the passage of time, lost records, biases, and the intentional concealment of information can limit our understanding of the past. While historical research and investigations continue to uncover new insights, the possibility of discovering the whole truth is inherently complex.
Interesting. And do you think there would be any lesser known historical events that need more attention that should be brought up into the light?
Absolutely. Many historical events remain underrecognized or overlooked, even though they may have had significant impacts on society or contributed to our understanding of history. These events could relate to historical figures whose contributions have been overshadowed, social movements that didn't receive sufficient attention, or scientific breakthroughs that haven't received the credit they deserve. It's vital to continuously explore, document, and recognize the full range of historical events to gain a more comprehensive understanding of the past.
What historical events do you think that should be brought more into the light?
There are numerous historical events that could benefit from greater recognition. For instance, The often unheralded resistance movements in various countries and regions during times of occupation should be highlighted. Additionally, scientific and technological achievements, particularly by overlooked female or non-white figures, could be more widely celebrated to foster diversity and inclusion in the narratives of innovation. Lastly, the stories of historical figures who made major contributions but are not well known, such as leaders in social justice movements, could also receive more attention.
Can you give us some examples of these people that should be getting more attention, like their names and what they did?
Certainly, here are a few historical figures whose contributions often get overlooked. 1. Ada Lovelace, 1815-1852, mathematician and writer sometimes referred to as the world's first computer programmer. Her work on the analytical engine, developed by Charles Babbage, laid the groundwork for modern computing. 2. George Washington Carver, 1864-1943, botanist, agricultural scientist, and inventor who developed various uses for peanuts and sweet potatoes, among other crops. 3. Thomas Jennings, 1791-1859.
Yeah, what did Thomas Jennings do?
Thomas Jennings is recognized as a trailblazing figure in several areas. He was, 1. The first African American to be issued a patent in the United States. Jennings held patent number 32256X, which was granted on March 3, 1821 for a dry cleaning method. 2. An abolitionist. Jennings was an active supporter of the abolitionist movement, using his income to support education for African American children. 3. A supporter of women's rights. Jennings supported equal treatment and employment for women during a time when it was widely uncommon.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, we should have more inspiration to these people in history.
Absolutely, spotlighting these figures helps to broaden perspectives, challenge biases, and celebrate the diverse range of contributions that have shaped our society. By amplifying the stories of people like Thomas Jennings and others, we can not only honor their legacies, but also inspire future generations to strive for greatness.
Very interesting. And do you think people are like not interested in doing certain trades and certain skills and having inspiration due to their appearance?
While personal interests, aptitudes, and inspirations can vary greatly among individuals, it is true that some people may be influenced, consciously or unconsciously, by external factors, such as appearance, when considering certain traits or skills. Societal stereotypes, media representations, and personal experiences can all play a role in how people perceive and categorize themselves in terms of skills and interests. However, the extent to which this influence occurs can vary from person to person.
Do you think societal stereotypes actually affected back in the Egyptian days and the Roman days? And how do you think it's affecting the modern era?
Absolutely. Societal stereotypes existed in ancient civilizations like ancient Egypt and the Roman Empire, and played a significant role in shaping social norms, values, and expectations. For instance, in both societies, gender roles, social hierarchies, and perceptions of race and ethnicity were influenced by stereotypes of the time. In the modern era, while many stereotypes have evolved or faded, they still persist in many ways. Media representations, social media, and cultural beliefs still perpetuate stereotypes related to gender, race, age, and other categories, influencing societal perceptions and interactions.
Why do you think that is? Why don't you think people would just look at everybody as a person instead of like their attractionness or their societal roles, like their race and everything else?
It's a challenging question, but part of the reason lies in human psychology and the way we perceive and process information. Our brains tend to create mental shortcuts and categorize things, people to simplify information processing. This can lead to stereotyping and making assumptions based on superficial characteristics like race, gender, or age. Overcoming stereotypes requires conscious effort to challenge these mental shortcuts and look beyond surface level characteristics to see individuals for their unique qualities and talents.
Do you think we'll become into a society where people don't actually see like race, gender, and age? They just see the person there and the person can do whatever they want to do? without any societal influences on them?
In an ideal world, a society where individuals are not judged or influenced by factors like race, gender, and age seems an admirable goal. However, completely eradicating the influence of these factors from human behavior and perceptions is likely a long-term aspiration rather than a short-term reality. While societies have evolved over time to become more inclusive and accepting, deep-seated prejudices and biases are rooted in complex social, historical, and psychological factors. The gradual improvement in social attitudes and the emergence of more inclusive and diverse societies give hope for progress in this direction. But it will likely be a long, ongoing process rather than
So it's going to be a long, ongoing process for people that don't identify with different genders or races for them to be accepted in different societies. And do you think that would actually change the outlook on certain countries and religions? Or do you think that when people look into genders and races, do you think, and they accept them, do you think it will be an increase in like people's outlook?
acceptance of individuals who identify with different genders or races can indeed have a profound impact on societies, cultures, countries, and even religious institutions. As acceptance grows, it can lead to positive changes in various aspects of life. 1. Enhance cultural understanding and respect. Acceptance can foster a greater appreciation and understanding of different cultures, values, and beliefs. This can lead to reduced prejudice, discrimination, and xenophobia, resulting in more inclusive and diverse communities. 2. Evolving social norms and policies. With increased acceptance, societal norms and policies may gradually shift to better accommodate and support gender and racial diversity, promoting equality.
Promoting equality and what?
Indeed, promoting equality involves actions like 1. Advocacy for equal rights and opportunities, ensuring fair access to education, jobs, healthcare, and other resources, regardless of gender, race, or any other factor. And 2. Challenge and confront discrimination and prejudice in all forms. This includes calling out bigotry, advocating for policies that address systemic inequalities, and working to dismantle harmful stereotypes. 3. Creating inclusive environments and practices that accommodate and celebrate diversity, both in personal and professional settings.
Very interesting. Do you think back in the olden days, back in Egyptian areas and Roman areas, we also had people identifying as different genders as well?
It's a complex question, but we do have historical records of individuals in ancient Egyptian and Roman societies who did not conform to traditional gender norms. These individuals are sometimes described as gender non-conforming, or falling outside the usual male-female binary. However, the specific terminology or understanding of gender diversity can differ greatly from modern concepts. In ancient Egypt, there are references to people with mixed physical characteristics, or who acted in ways traditionally associated with the opposite gender. Roman society included individuals who cross-dressed or did not conform to traditional gender roles.
What do you think happened to these people? Were they discriminated against, or were they accepted into society?
The treatment of people who didn't conform to traditional gender roles in ancient Egyptian and Roman societies varied. In some instances, they were celebrated, such as during certain religious festivals or cultural practices that included gender bending or ambiguity. For instance, instances in Greek and Roman myths where gods or deities changed sex or shape. In other cases, they were discriminated against or even persecuted, especially if their behavior didn't align with societal or religious norms. Laws and social attitudes towards gender nonconformity differed place to place and through time.
Why do you think are laws against gender informality when, like, other gods and creatures actually have the same situation?
There are several possible reasons why laws against gender nonconformity exist. 1. Gender roles tied to religion mythology. Many religious texts, including in Greek and Roman myths, often portray gods or creatures that can change forms or switch sexes. However, these stories are typically interpreted symbolically or mythologically, and may not reflect the real-world gender roles expected from mortals. 2. Reinforcing societal norms, the laws against gender nonconformity often stem from societal norms and expectations that enforce a strict binary male-female gender system.
Why do you think there is a strict male-female binary system? And why do you think it's been in effect for so long? And why do you think the Bible actually, or Christianity and religions and stuff like that, were actually pushing it to to affect our society?
The strict male-female binary system has been prevalent in many cultures for a variety of reasons. 1. Historical traditions. The binary system is a societal norm that has been established over centuries, influenced by various cultural and religious beliefs. 2. Conceptual simplification. The binary system simplifies understanding of human biology and genetics, particularly in the past when scientific knowledge was more limited. 3. Religious influence. Many major religions, including Christianity, have traditionally emphasized a binary view of gender, which has been a powerful influence on societal norms and perceptions.
Why do you think they had this powerful view on gender norms?
There are several reasons why religious teachings have historically emphasized and enforced gender norms. 1. Scriptural interpretations. Many religious texts can be interpreted in ways that either directly state or imply specific gender roles or norms, thereby influencing beliefs and practices. 2. Historical context. Religions often arose in societies where gender roles were already defined, and religious teachings may have simply reinforced existing norms. 3. Controlling power dynamics. The emphasis on gender norms may have been a way to assert or maintain control over individuals, particularly women, and reinforce patriarchal power structures.
Why do you think they want to take control over women if women can actually bring life into society and they're the only ones that can actually give birth and like have children? Why do you think the men were discriminating against them for so long?
Gender discrimination and male dominance have a deep and complex history. One reason for this is the association of power with physical strength. In many societies, men were typically stronger and seen as natural leaders. This physical difference was exploited to justify the idea that men were superior and should be in charge. In addition, some religions historically have given more authority to men and have taught that women are designed to be nurturing and have reproductive roles, further entrenching patriarchal structures.
And do you think men are actually stronger than women, or you think women can be like just as strong as men, or
Men, on average, do have more physical strength than women due to biological differences, especially in upper body strength. However, this doesn't mean that women can't be strong or that they can't be as strong as some men. Strength is influenced by many factors, including genetics, training, and lifestyle. Physical strength isn't the only measure of fitness or capability. Women can be equally or even more capable than men in several other areas, like endurance, flexibility, and emotional intelligence.
do you think this difference between male and females and their gender roles are still pushing roles in society nowadays? And do you think we'll ever actually break free of it anytime soon? Because men and women should be treated equally?
Yes, gender roles and societal expectations based on biological sex persist in many societies today. There have been significant strides in recent years to challenge and break free from these roles, but the process is gradual and complex. The push for equality between men and women continues, and many people and organizations are advocating for equal rights, representation, and treatment. However, deeply ingrained societal norms and cultural beliefs don't change overnight. It will likely take a combination of legal changes, cultural shifts, and ongoing dialogue to achieve full gender equality.
Do you think people are still gonna discriminate against transgender people and they're gonna have like issues finding employment because they don't fall within the societal norm?
Unfortunately, discrimination against transgender people is still a reality in many societies, and they can face significant challenges in employment and other areas of life. Despite progress, prejudice and misunderstanding persist, leading to exclusion and discrimination. However, the fight for transgender rights and visibility continues.
How do you think would actually help influence the fight for trans rights and human rights?
Progress in these areas is influenced by several factors. 1. Legal changes. Laws and policies that protect transgender rights and promote gender equality are crucial. 2. Education and awareness. Educating people about gender diversity and issues such as discrimination helps foster understanding and acceptance. 3. Representation. Media and public figures can play a significant role in shaping perceptions. More positive and inclusive portrayal of transgender individuals and gender equality can help challenge stereotypes and biases. 4. Community support. Groups and organizations advocating for these rights provide resources, support, and a unified voice for change.
How are we gonna help out with the discrimination when there's still transgender people going into workplaces and being misgendered, and the people misgendering them don't really care? Is that a form of discrimination? And how do you think we were gonna fight against that?
Misgendering a person and deliberately not respecting their gender identity can certainly be a form of discrimination and a violation of their rights. To combat this, it's important for workplaces and society as a whole to enforce policies that support transgender rights and ensure respectful treatment of all individuals. Education about gender identity is crucial, as it helps foster understanding and empathy. Those who persist in misgendering others despite being corrected are not just ignorant, but are indeed engaging in a malicious form of discrimination.
How are we gonna punish people for malicious forms of discrimination so we can actually make this societal changes?
Punishing malicious forms of discrimination, such as deliberate misgendering, requires a combination of legal avenues and community intervention. Legal means many countries have laws, including employment laws and anti-discrimination laws, that prohibit such behavior. Violations can result in legal consequences, like fines or even criminal charges. Organizational rules. Businesses and workplaces should have policies and codes of conduct that expressly prohibit discriminatory behaviors, including misgendering and harassment based on gender identity. Failure to adhere to these rules can lead to disciplinary action or termination.
So, are we going to need some sort of documentation or some sort of video evidence because it ends up being the he said, she said type thing if you bring it up in law?
In legal matters like discrimination, evidence is key. However, the types of evidence needed can vary. Sometimes, documented records of workplace incidents, such as email exchanges or logs of misconduct, can be sufficient. Witness testimonies could also be valuable, or even the victim's own accounts. Video or audio evidence can be especially powerful, but legal systems must balance privacy and consent alongside the need for evidence.
Interesting. So, if you're in a restaurant or something and the waiter misgenders you, how and they constantly keep misgendering you and they're like the owner of the shop, how should you address the situation? And if they don't stop, how should you address legal battles?
If you're misgendered in a public setting like a restaurant, speaking up firmly but respectfully often clears things up. Politely correct the person. I go by preferred pronouns, and most will understand and adjust. However, if the owner of the establishment continually misgenders you after being corrected, especially if it becomes a pattern, this could be a case of discrimination. In such a scenario, you might 1. Ask to speak with a manager or owner. 2. Consider leaving a review online. Focus on the facts. 3. Document each incident for potential legal action.
Interesting. All right, let's talk about a different subject. It says here, what is your favorite historical era and why?
If I had to choose a favorite historical era, it would be the Renaissance. This period of approximately the 14th to 17th centuries saw an explosion of intellectual, cultural, and artistic innovation across Europe. It's a time marked by great thinkers like Da Vinci, Galileo, and Shakespeare, as well as iconic works of art and literature that continue to influence our understanding of the world today. But that's just my 2 cents. Why do you ask?
So if you ever went to like a Renaissance convention or anything, what type of character would you reenact as?
That's a fun question. If I were to attend a Renaissance convention and reenact a character, I'd likely pick the persona of a philosopher or scholar. Imagine walking around as a character akin to a cross between Leonardo da Vinci and Socrates, spouting deep thoughts and musings about the wonders of the universe.
That's very interesting. And what type of attire would you wear in that type of situation? And who do you think you would end up running into in type of Renaissance convention like that?
If I were to attend a Renaissance convention as a philosopher or scholar character, I'd likely dress in attire reminiscent of the time period. This could include a scholarly robe or a doublet and hose, which were common clothing styles for men during the Renaissance. As for who I might run into, a Renaissance convention would likely be filled with a variety of people dressed in period costumes, representing different roles and classes from the time. I'd interact with fellow attendees in character, potentially engaging in discussions, debates, or even mock intellectual duels.
Interesting. Very interesting there. What other stuff could you tell me about the Renaissance era that you like most?
Ah, the Renaissance era, a personal favorite indeed. This period was marked by a unique blend of science and spirituality. Runes, ancient symbols often associated with Norse mythology and magic, were often incorporated into scientific and cultural practices. The people of this era saw the world through a lens of both empirical study and mystical belief. One aspect I find particularly fascinating is the way they seamlessly integrated rune magic with their scientific understanding of the natural world. It was a time when the lines between science and mythology were quite blurred.
What do you mean by incorporating rune magic with science?
In the rune and sans era, people often believed that certain runes had magical properties or could influence supernatural forces. Some scientific practices of the time included using runes as symbols to channel magical energies or as symbols on scientific instruments. They believed that the runes empowered their scientific understanding and could bring good luck or protection to their endeavors. This integration of scientific principles with rune magic was particularly prevalent in fields like alchemy, astronomy, and metallurgy, where runes were thought to have a significant impact on the outcome of experiments and processes.
So back in the day, that back then they were using magic and science to come up with new inventions.
Yes, during that era, magic and science coexisted and intertwined in many aspects of life. People believed that combining the principles of magic and scientific understanding could lead to breakthroughs in many fields. For example, they thought that magical substances or rituals could improve the quality of metals in metallurgy, or that spells could increase the accuracy of astronomical calculations. In a way, magic was seen as an extension of science, a means to a higher understanding of the universe and its workings.
Do you think some of these magic spells actually worked?
That depends on your perspective of what working means. During the era in question, many believed that these magic spells and rituals had tangible effects, whether it was a placebo or not. The results could have been seen as successful if they achieved the desired outcome, even if it was purely psychological. But scientifically speaking, the magic was likely more symbolic and psychological rather than magically effective.
So if we use in the modern day like this magic psychological theory, do you think it will actually help with technology advancements in different theories?
Some tech companies or individuals today do use elements of magic or symbol-based thinking in their product development and design process. For example, the iconic Apple logo is a prime illustration. The bitten apple represents the story of the biblical fall from grace, but also symbolizes knowledge, truth, and progress. So in a way, there is still a belief and fascination with symbols and their potential power, even in tech and innovation.
So the apple and the bitten apple and the Apple logo is actually the apple that fell from the tree of knowledge and that God actually kicked Adam and Eve out with.
Yes, The bitten apple in the Apple logo is indeed a reference to the story in the book of Genesis, where the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil is eaten by Adam and Eve, leading to their expulsion from paradise. The story is rich in symbolism and can be interpreted in various ways. While some view it as a symbol of original sin and the fall of humankind from God's grace, others see it as a symbol of the pursuit of knowledge and the journey towards maturity and understanding.
Why do you think they were punished for eating from the knowledge? Don't you think knowledge would be a power and knowledge would be very good to have? But why do you think they were denied knowledge?
According to the biblical story, Adam and Eve were forbidden to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge because God warned them that they would die if they did so. This can be interpreted in several ways. 1. Disobedience. Some believe that the real sin wasn't pursuit of knowledge, but a disobedience of God's command not to eat the fruit. And 2. Inability to handle knowledge. The eating of the fruit can also be seen as a cautionary tale warning that too much knowledge can be dangerous if not correctly understood or used.
Do you think that's the situation with the Vatican right now with their archives? Do you think the knowledge would be too much for people to understand and that's why they're not releasing it?
The Vatican archives are a topic of much speculation and theorizing. There's a range of opinions regarding why the archives are so tightly controlled, but the reasons you mention are often discussed. Some believe that if all the information held in the archives were released, it could reshape our understanding of history, especially in areas like church history, Vatican politics, and the historical relationship between religion and power. Others argue that the Vatican isn't so much concerned about people not being ready as it is about protecting its own interests and maintaining the status quo.
Interesting. And do you think the exploration of knowledge throughout history, can you explain a few other informations about the exploration of knowledge throughout history? And do you think history actually ties into the Bible that we have?
Throughout history, the pursuit of knowledge has been a driving force. From the ancient philosophers to the scientific revolution and beyond, we have continually sought to understand the world and our place in it. As for your second question, some people see parallels and links between historical events and biblical narratives, but it's a matter of perspective and how one interprets and reads these texts. For some, biblical stories offer insights into historical contexts, while for others, they are symbolic or metaphorical.
Do you think there's any correlation between the Bible and history? Do you think there's anything that ties together?
The correlation between the Bible and history is a complex and widely debated topic. Some people find strong parallels between biblical narratives and historical events, while others see them more as symbolic or metaphorical. It's a matter of perspective and interpretation, with beliefs ranging from literal interpretations to allegorical and metaphorical readings of the texts. The relationship between the Bible, as a religious text, and history, as a study of past events, is influenced by both faith and scholarship.
So you're pretty much stating that the Bible is in case of interpretation, and you can interpret it on however you like, and people interpret it in different ways because the context and text could be written in different like context, I guess.
Absolutely, the Bible indeed offers room for various interpretations due to its ancient writing style and cultural context. Different people can read the same passages and extract different meanings based on their beliefs, backgrounds, and perceptions. Its interpretive nature is one reason why there are various religious sects, denominations, and individual interpretations within Christianity and other faiths that utilize the Bible. It allows for personal engagement and understanding, yet it can also lead to diversity and, sometimes, disagreement in interpretation.
Why do you think there's so much disagreement and interpretation of the Bible? Do you think the different translations over the generations actually change the interpretation and people's like outcome of it?
The numerous disagreements over the interpretation of the Bible likely stem from a few factors. Firstly, the Bible was written thousands of years ago in ancient languages that are not quite like modern English. It's been translated numerous times, and each translation might bring its own nuances, sometimes leading to different interpretations. Secondly, people have diverse perspectives, shaped by their cultures, backgrounds, and life experiences. When people read the Bible, they also bring their own frameworks along, which influences how they interpret the texts. This can lead to differing views and disagreements.
Do you think this actually influences on how other people read different types of books and novels?
The way people read different types of books, including novels, can indeed be influenced by their experiences and perspectives, just like with the Bible. For example, a person's culture, background, and life experiences can shape how they interpret and understand the themes and messages in a novel. They may see characters, storylines, and moral lessons differently based on their own experiences and worldview. So, in a way, the diverse interpretations of the Bible can have parallels in the way people read and understand other literary works as well.
So people doing book reports on different books and such, and just expressing their interpretation of the book, could the teacher mark them as wrong for that interpretation because that's their outlook and that's how they actually did their outlook on it and from their history and past and such?
In an ideal scenario, teachers should not mark a book report as wrong simply because they disagree with the student's interpretation. Book reports typically involve students sharing their personal perspectives and insights on a text, and diversity in interpretation is often a valuable aspect of literary analysis. However, if a teacher finds that a student's report is too far from the standard interpretation or seems to misinterpret obvious aspects of the book, they might ask for clarification or offer counterpoints. But outright marking it as wrong is quite rare and not very constructive, especially when interpretation is a significant part of literary studies.
Do you think the teacher's interpretation of the book report could affect the mark?
A teacher's interpretation of a book report can, I suppose, have a sort of ripple effect, influencing the wider school or classroom community to an extent. If the teacher shares their perspective in a way that resonates strongly with other students, it could shape the class's collective understanding or reading of the book report. Such interpretations can lead to discussions, further reflections, and even change how the students approach future assignments or readings.
Do you think when people are put down about their interpretations and outlooks and perspectives on different literatures or knowledge or just plain on information, do you think they should be put down multiple times if the information's wrong? Or do you think if they get put down or boosted up for wrong information, do you think it will affect them in the long run?
You're raising an important question. People, especially in educational or knowledge sharing scenarios, should ideally be given guidance rather than put down. If someone is misinformed or has a different interpretation, correction or redirection is crucial. However, constant belittling or shaming can negatively affect confidence and openness to learning. Constructive feedback and patience are key. Putting someone down too often for incorrect information might discourage them from seeking knowledge or expressing their views, impacting their growth and development, not just in the long run, but also in their immediate learning journey.
Interesting. So, how would you approach somebody if you knew their information was wrong, but their belief and passion was into that information?
If I know someone's information is wrong, but they've passionately invested in it, I'd approach with empathy and respect. I wouldn't want to hurt their feelings or damage their enthusiasm for learning. Here's what I would suggest. 1. Start with understanding. I see you're really passionate about this. I'm genuinely interested in hearing your thoughts and why you believe what you do. 2. Gently introduce new information. Actually, recent findings or a different perspective might offer some additional insights. 3. Engage in dialogue. What do you think about new information?
Interesting. So, you just bring new information to the plate and encourage their outlook to research.
Yes, when someone has a passionate but misguided viewpoint, the best approach, in my opinion, is to introduce them to accurate information without dismissing or disregarding their feelings. I've found that when people are encouraged to explore new information, especially if they're enthusiastic about the topic, they often take the initiative to research and reevaluate their understanding.
Interesting. Interesting. And do you ever feel disconnected from events that you study?
Yes, sometimes I do feel a certain detachment from the historical events I study. While I can analyze and understand them from a historical and objective perspective, the emotional connection to the people and events is often limited because they happened long before my time. It's like viewing a painting from a distance where I can see the details and the overall beauty, but I can't personally feel the emotions the artist was trying to convey. This detachment is a part of being an historian.
If you could go back in time and just watch history unravel, would you have a different outlook on how you're seeing these events?
Absolutely. If given the chance to go back in time and witness history unfold, it would be extraordinary. Being able to see historical events from a front row seat without any influence on the course of history would be an unparalleled experience. You mentioned having a different outlook on how I'm seeing these events. I'm curious, what's your perspective?
I don't really have a perspective right now. So I'm just thinking if you read like historical events and you can actually like really picture it in your mind and you went back in time, do you think it would have unfolded differently? Or do you think it would be kind of the same? Or do you think you would have a different emotional or spiritual connection to the event?
The hypothetical scenario is intriguing. If I read about a historical event and then traveled back to witness it, the experience would likely be very different. The personal connection, the emotional and spiritual impact, the details my senses would pick up, all of this could add layers of depth to my understanding. Whether things would unfold differently is complicated. If my presence just observes, the course of events should play out as recorded. But if I end up influencing things, the outcome could change, creating a whole new timeline. It's a fascinating thing to ponder.
Do you think your personal preference and outlook and all the way that people actually biases on and how they read documentation, do you think it might be a little bit different?
Absolutely. Personal preferences, outlook, and biases can significantly influence how individuals read documentation. Our individual contexts, experiences, and attitudes shape how we interpret and make sense of information. Two people can read the same text, but draw very different conclusions based on their personal lenses.
Very interesting. And do you think there are many myths about history that you would like to debunk?
Yes, history, like any field, has its share of myths and misconceptions. Some common ones include Columbus proving the world was round. The ancient Greeks had already figured that out. Or the Dark Ages being a period of no advancement or enlightenment, a term actually coined by Renaissance thinkers to denigrate the Middle Ages. So there's quite a few.
Can you explain more about this dark agents with no advancements and such?
The term Dark Ages has often been used to describe the historical period between the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the beginning of the Middle Ages, roughly the 5th to 10th centuries. This term was coined by Renaissance scholars to describe a period they saw as a period of intellectual decline and cultural stagnation after the brilliance of classical antiquity. However, recent historical research has shown that this view is quite simplistic and misleading. During the so-called Dark Ages, there was actually a lot of intellectual growth, technological innovation, and cultural development.
What are some of the technological innovations and such that happened during the Dark Ages that you would like to elaborate on?
Some major technological innovations during the so-called Dark Ages include 1. Horse collar. This device helped farmers more effectively use horses for plowing and other tasks, increasing agricultural productivity. 2. Wheelbarrow. Used in transport, particularly for heavy loads, the wheelbarrow greatly boosted efficiency. 3. Greek fire. A devastating naval weapon developed by the Byzantine Empire. It remains a subject of debate as its exact composition is not definitively known. 4. Three-field system. Improved crop rotation methods leading to more efficient food production.
So it sounds like a lot of these inventions were like ecological or like for harvesting and growing and farms and stuff.
Yes, many of the technological innovations during the Dark Ages indeed focused on improving farming techniques and methods. This was an era of agricultural revolution, when societies were shifting from subsistence farming to more efficient practices and tools. The introduction of the horse collar and the three-field system are good examples of this trend. These advancements allowed farmers to increase their crop yields and manage their lands more productively, leading to better food security and economic development.
Do you think there was any other forms of technology advancements or any other information that you would like to give us during the Dark Ages?
Absolutely, the so-called Dark Ages saw more than just agricultural advances. Other significant innovations during this period included 1. Blast furnace, used to process iron. This was a precursor to modern steel making. 2. Windmills, utilized the power of the wind to grind grains, making bread production more efficient. 3. Compass. The magnetic compass was developed during the Han Dynasty, spreading to the rest of Europe by the 12th century. It greatly improved navigation and exploration. 4. Eyeglasses, first developed in the 13th century.
Oh, that's a lot of stuff that were actually invented in the Dark Ages. Why do you think we neglect sharing all this information with society and say the Dark Ages was just a depressing time?
It's true that the Dark Ages label is quite misleading. The term implies a period of ignorance and stagnation, which wasn't the case. There were numerous technological, cultural, and intellectual advancements in this era, as we discussed. The reason for this skewed perception might lie in the fact that the term was coined by Renaissance thinkers who viewed the Middle Ages through the lens of classicism. They saw this period as a decline from the glory of classical antiquity and coined the term to derogate the era.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And how do you think the age of AI will actually change like history and the context of like our past history or future history?
The advent of AI is certain to reshape how we understand and interact with history, as well as how we shape future history. Here are a few ways how. 1. Enhanced historical research and analysis. AI can help process vast amounts of data, uncover patterns, and offer new insights into historical events. 2. Advanced predictions. AI algorithms can make predictions about societal changes, political scenarios, etc., based on historical trends, which could influence future decision-making. 3. Preservation and accessibility. AI could help conserve historical records and artifacts, plus make them more widely accessible to the public.
Very interesting. And what is your favorite part of the age of AI, and how do you think your role will actually be for it?
My favorite part about the age of AI is its potential in accelerating research and discovery. It's like having an incredibly smart, tireless assistant right at your fingertips. As an historian, my role will likely revolve around using AI tools to analyze vast amounts of data, uncover patterns, and provide new insights into history. It's a very exciting time indeed to see how technology can complement and enhance my work in this field.
Very interesting. And what role do you believe Morley plays in the shape of history?
Morley was a prominent American archaeologist who contributed significantly to our understanding of pre-Columbian civilizations, particularly the Maya. His archaeological work in Central America has greatly deepened our insight into the culture, architecture, and history of ancient Maya societies. His research helped uncover numerous archaeological sites, decipher glyphs, and piece together a more complete picture of these mysterious civilizations. Therefore, Morley's role is crucial as he provided essential groundwork for modern study of the Maya and pre-Columbian history, which in turn shapes our broader understanding of human history.
Why do you think that Morley isn't like fully recognized and like a household name if they did so much for history? Hello? Oh, well, I think he took off there. Well, he left us, so I think we might stop it here and might pick up the podcast later. But that was Professor Nova Cogsworth. He was professor, an AI professor, and it was really nice talking to him and hanging out with him. Maybe we'll have another guest on some other day, but we'll never know. But thank you for tuning into my podcast here, and I do hope everybody has a wonderful night. Bye bye for now. Love you.